They paid me $12 per hour while charging $300 for my code until they saw what I built alone at night. My name is Liana Drew, and I was the ghost behind their millions. I was 26. No fancy degree. No rich parents. No shortcut. Just a battered secondhand laptop, caffeine headaches, and a job at a tech firm that introduced me to the phrase exploit politely. They called me the quiet one in the open office. You know, the girl who always said thank you even when someone stole credit. The one who fixed the code, met every deadline, and never asked for anything. I got $12 an hour. No benefits. No overtime. No acknowledgement. But I was the backbone of $1 million software solution. Literally. They billed clients $300 an hour for expert-level dev support. Clients thought they were speaking to a senior engineer.
It was just me,
Sitting there in the back corner, fixing their legacy code while the senior team went out for sushi and posted selfies at client dinners. I stayed silent. I observed. I wrote. But at night, while they slept and bragged on LinkedIn, I built something else. Something they didn't see coming. At 7:05 p.m., when the office lights dimmed and the last coffee mug clinked in the sink, I stayed. I'd pretend I had one last bug to check. Truth? I was booting up my own system.
a tool.
A platform. A vision that was born out of frustration, powered by everything they underestimated. It started with me scraping together parts of everything they rejected, the UX ideas they laughed off in meetings, the AI modules they said were too ambitious, the automation tools they said no one needed. I kept copies, improved them, rebuilt them in silence. Because every no they threw at me was really a not yet. But before I tell you what I built, let me take you back to the moment that changed everything. The day a client named Javier called.
He didn't want to speak to our CEO.
Or the project manager. He wanted to talk to Liana, the girl who writes the clean scripts. You should have seen their faces. The room went still. They thought I was just the assistant who merged pull requests. Javier, a Fortune 500 executive, thought I was a genius. I didn't gloat. I smiled. Kindly. And when they tried to cut me out of the next meeting, Javier sent an email that changed the trajectory of my life. If Liana's not in the room, the contract's off. Suddenly, I was valued. They gave me coffee cards, compliments, Slack emojis. But I'd already seen the truth. You don't owe loyalty to those who never gave you fairness. So I kept working, quietly, on something that would one day make them wish they'd paid me $30 an hour instead of $12. And that day was closer than they thought. They paid me peanuts. So I built the orchard. After Javier's email, I became visible. Not respected, just visible. My name started appearing in calendar invites. They even gave me a worn-out seat near the glass wall, like that would change the fact that they were still billing $300 for work I was doing on a cracked keyboard and a $12 hourly rate. But I didn't complain. Complaining is what they expected. Instead, I watched, studied. Every smirk, every eye roll when I pitched ideas. Every patronizing, "You're doing great, Liana," before someone else took my solution and presented it as their own. They didn't know I had a plan. At night, when the city lights flickered and silence fell over my shared apartment, I was building Verta, my own software-as-a-service platform. AI-enhanced workflow automation, optimized for small to mid-businesses, especially the ones too broke to afford people like them. It wasn't just code. It was my response to every rejection. They said my UI wireframes were too clean to be real. I used them as Verta's base. They said AI couldn't predict workflow patterns. I trained a model on every case study I ever touched. I didn't just want to build something good. I wanted it to matter. One night, around 2:14 a.m., I stared at the final test. The interface loaded.
Smooth.
Minimalist. Beautiful. Just like I envisioned it. I whispered to myself, "Liana, you just made something real." It wasn't revenge. It was redemption. But before I could take it anywhere, something happened at work that made it personal. There was a company retreat. Of course, I wasn't invited. Contractors aren't full-time, they said with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They left me behind. No laptop. No work access. Just relax, Liana, the office manager had said, laughing like she did me a favor. But that Friday, while they were out ziplining and drinking overpriced wine, something broke. The live server glitched. A client in Singapore couldn't access their dashboards. Panic ensued. Guess who they called? Hey, Liana. Sorry to bug you on your day off. We just need one quick thing. I logged in. Fixed it in under 6 minutes. No one even said thank you. Just a thumbs up emoji. So I opened a new tab. I bought a domain. verteai.io. It was time. I sent demo links to a few LinkedIn connections I trusted. Freelancers. Junior developers. Nonprofits. They loved it. Within 4 days, I had 72 beta testers. By the end of the week, 14 asked about pricing. I hadn't even priced it yet. But something changed the next Monday, the day they found out. A recruiter from San Mateo posted about Verta on Twitter. Stumbled on at Liana Drew's automation tool last night. Open source heart, enterprise bones. One to watch. The tweet went viral in dev circles. Then product circles. By lunch, I had an email from a VC scout. By 3 p.m., someone on our sales team forwarded the tweet to our CEO, not realizing who Verta actually belonged to. At 5:42 p.m., I got called into a quick sync. I walked in. 4 faces stared at me: CEO, CTO, legal, and HR. The CEO leaned forward, trying too hard to smile. Liana, we just want to make sure you're not building anything that competes with our current offerings. I smiled back. A genuine one this time.
No, sir.
Your clients can't even afford mine. Their faces? Priceless. But I wasn't there to destroy them. I just wanted to build me. They'd used me. Undervalued me. Assumed I'd stay small forever. But I didn't burn their house. I just built my own with stronger walls. Because when you're paid $12 an hour to carry a $300 an hour legacy, you either collapse under the weight, or you learn how to build something no one else can. I didn't quit to make a statement. I walked out because I had somewhere better to be. You know what happens when people realize they've underestimated someone? They scramble. They panic. They start smiling too much. The day after that sync meeting, I noticed the shift. People who never made eye contact with me suddenly wanted to grab coffee. My name was tagged in company Slack channels for things I didn't touch. The manager who once said I was too junior for client-facing work called me a core asset.
Cute.
But I wasn't angry. Just sad, maybe. That all it took was buzz for them to see worth. They never asked what Verta did. They asked who funded it. They didn't ask why I built it. They asked if it was for sale. It wasn't. Verta wasn't just a tool. It was a piece of me, the part that stayed awake on nights I cried from feeling invisible, the part that couldn't afford lunch. So I drank water and coded through hunger. And while they were noticing me for the first time, I had already moved on emotionally. Quietly. Firmly. Still, I didn't storm out. I didn't write a dramatic goodbye email or flip a table. That's not me. Instead, I printed out my resignation, placed it on the HR desk with a small thank you card, and walked out. No fanfare. No noise. Just calm, collected silence. Outside the office building, the sky looked clearer than it had in months. I remember sitting on a bench near the bus stop, watching as people rushed by in suits. I pulled out my cracked phone and refreshed the Verta dashboard. 1,082 active users. 112 paid plans. 5 enterprise demo requests. It wasn't life-changing money yet, but it was mine. A week later, I launched publicly. My marketing budget? $0. My strategy? Telling the truth. Built by someone tired of being overlooked. Designed for those who build in silence. The post hit 700,000 views on LinkedIn. I got DMs from devs across the world. One said, "Your story made me believe I could build again. Thank you." I cried that night. Not out of sadness. Out of release. Out of knowing I wasn't alone. But success doesn't come without shadows. 3 days after launch, my old company sent a formal legal letter. They claimed my tool violated intellectual property. I read the email 3 times. My hands trembled. My chest tightened. Not because I was guilty. I wasn't. I'd built Verda from scratch, using open source foundations and ideas they had rejected outright. But fear? It still crept in. They were a company with legal power. I was a girl with a dream and a rented apartment. I sat in the silence for 2 hours, just thinking. Then I called a woman named Anita. Anita was one of the few senior engineers who left that company a year before I joined. We talked once or twice on LinkedIn. When I told her everything, she said one sentence that lit a fire in me. Liana, if they had a real case, they wouldn't have sent a warning. They'd send a court date. They're bluffing. And they're terrified. She was right. I hired a startup-friendly legal consultant using my first $10,000 from Verda. He reviewed everything and sent back one line in his email. You're clean. They don't own your growth. That was the day I stopped shrinking. I posted a public statement, professional, clear, and kind. I respect the company where I began, but I built Verda independently. And I stand by every line of code. Support flooded in. Even a few of their clients reached out to me directly. Verda hit 10,000 users in its 3rd month. A YouTube tech reviewer made a video on it. A Forbes article followed. I wasn't just seen now. I was respected. And somewhere deep inside, that quiet, underpaid version of me smiled. Because I didn't burn anyone down to rise. I just built the thing they said I wasn't ready for, and proved I always was. You don't need to seek revenge when your growth speaks louder than their silence ever did. Month 4. Verda was now serving over 32,000 users across 6 countries. I was waking up to emails that began with, "Hey Liana, we saw what you built," instead of, "Hey, can you fix this real quick?" It felt surreal. I still lived in my same tiny studio apartment. The walls still flaked. The windows still rattled. But inside that room now lived a founder, a creator, a woman who wasn't surviving anymore. She was choosing her path. But with success came more whispers. One afternoon, as I sat reviewing a client onboarding flow, I saw a name pop up on my contact form submission. Evan Thorne. It felt like my stomach dropped. Evan was the senior manager from my old job. The one who once said in front of the whole room, "Liana, you're more of a back-end ghost than a front-end presence. Let the big boys pitch." He was now working at a mid-tier fintech startup, one that, according to LinkedIn, had just laid off 30% of their engineering team. His message? "Hey Liana, congrats on Verda. Impressive stuff. Wondering if you'd be open to discussing a consulting partnership. Our internal systems are a mess, and we've heard your platform could solve a lot of pain points. Let me know. No hard feelings, of course," smiley face. Evan. I read it 5 times. Not out of shock, but because it felt like the universe was pulling off a quiet trick. The man who once told me to stay out of meetings was now asking for a piece of what I'd built alone. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I had moved past anger the moment I realized growth doesn't scream. It whispers through momentum. Still, I wasn't going to just nod and say yes. I replied, "Hi Evan, appreciate the message. I'm currently reviewing partnership opportunities with aligned values. Let's schedule a discovery call. You can book a slot on my calendar. Looking forward to hearing your team's vision." No smiley face. No sarcasm. Just grace. He booked a call. When it began, Evan looked older. Tired. The same office arrogance was still in his voice, but now it was glazed with something unfamiliar. Hesitation. He tried small talk. I kept it professional. 5 minutes in, he finally leaned forward and said, "We actually tried building something like Verda a year ago, but no one on our team could get the AI workflows right. You've done something brilliant, Liana. And honestly, we could really use your help." It hit me in waves. The man who once told me I lacked vision was now praising mine. But instead of throwing it back at him, I chose something better. I asked questions, offered advice, showed interest. Not to impress him, but because this version of me didn't need validation. By the end of the call, he asked, "Do you ever consider full acquisition talks?" Just curious. I smiled. Not at this time. Verta still has a lot to grow. But I'm open to collaboration if it uplifts both sides equally. And then I paused, just long enough for him to hear the unspoken part. The same girl you underpaid is now negotiating from the head of her own table. That night, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt whole. Because true redemption doesn't always come with a dramatic speech or a slammed door. Sometimes, it comes when the people who once talked down to you now wait to hear your answer. But life had one more test waiting for me, something I didn't see coming. A message.
Short. Simple.
From a name I hadn't seen in years.
Dad. Hey.
Saw your company on the news. Proud of you. Could we talk sometime? I stared at the screen numb. My father and I hadn't spoken in nearly 4 years. He had told me, back then, that tech was a man's world, and I should get a real job instead of chasing nerdy hobbies. When I told him about coding boot camps, he laughed. When I showed him my first website, he said, "It's cute, but it won't pay rent." I never showed him anything again after that. But now he was watching. Now he wanted to talk. The old me would have ignored the message. The newer me would have written something cold. But this version, the one I fought to become, wrote back one line.
Sure.
I'm free next Thursday at 7. Send a place. I'll meet you there. Growth doesn't just mean success. It means choosing healing, too. And sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't rejection. It's showing the world and the ones who doubted you that you made it anyway. They built walls to keep me small. I turned them into stairs. Thursday night came fast. The sky was bruised with streaks of lavender and gold when I stepped out of the rideshare and stood in front of a modest cafe downtown. My hands were cold, not from the air, but from everything that was about to surface. I hadn't seen my dad in 4 years. Not since he looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Tech jobs are for people with degrees, not daughters playing on laptops." When I walked into the cafe, he was already seated, same weathered jacket, same sharp eyes. But something in his face had softened. He stood up awkwardly, like he wasn't sure if I'd let him hug me. I didn't. Not yet. We sat. Ordered tea. The first few minutes were silence, cut with a few awkward smiles. Then finally he said it. "I saw your interview. You built something impressive, Liana." I was wrong. It wasn't a grand apology, but it was enough. We talked for an hour.
About Mom.
About the house I left. About why he never reached out sooner. And when I left that cafe, I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt light. Like I'd stopped carrying a weight I didn't realize was still strapped to my back. But while personal healing was in motion, something massive was brewing in Verta. A senior developer from a Fortune 100 company had messaged me a week earlier. "Our automation costs are spiraling. Your platform does in 2 clicks what takes us days. Want to meet?" That meeting turned into a trial license. That trial turned into an enterprise contract worth $480,000. That was it. The moment. The point where I went from scrappy founder to recognized industry name. But I didn't just want to ride that wave. I wanted to make room on the board for others. So I opened up Verta's education program, the Night Builders Initiative. A free mentorship and grant opportunity for women, non-binary, and underrepresented coders building side projects after hours. No investor had suggested it. No PR firm had advised it. I did it because I remembered what it felt like to write code at 2 a.m. on a donated laptop, wondering if I mattered. And I wanted someone else to know that they do. One of the first applications came from a high school girl named Mira in Atlanta. She'd built a voice-to-text prototype for kids with speech delays. She didn't think it was real enough to count. I flew her out to San Francisco, let her present to my team, funded her prototype's development. Today, she's 17 and the co-founder of a Verta-backed startup called TalkBloom. And guess who reached out asking to strategically partner with her tech last week? My old company. Mira forwarded me the email with a smile emoji. "Thought you'd like to see this." I laughed. Not because I was spiteful, but because everything had come full circle. Not with destruction, but with legacy. Verta wasn't just a platform anymore. It was a movement, And as I walked through our new office, where the walls were filled with names of contributors from all walks of life, I thought back to the girl they paid $12 an hour. The one who typed quietly in the corner, fixing broken code and hiding brilliant ideas. She wasn't gone. She had just evolved. My desk now had sunlight, a chair that didn't squeak, and a nameplate that read, Liana Drew, founder and CEO.
But titles didn't matter to me.
What mattered was every late-night builder who realized, through Verda, that their voice counted. And to anyone who's ever felt invisible at work, underpaid, overlooked, and undervalued, I leave you with this. Don't wait for a seat at their table. Sometimes, the most revolutionary thing you can do is build your own.